Welcome to class number 8, sparse text feedback, and how we can deal with that. So in lesson number 1, we talk about the reasons for sparse text feedback. First off, there are reasons you cannot control. It is basically a part of your target group. For instance, if you have a low brand loyalty, people talk not so much. So on the other hand, if you have a niche product with a strong brand loyalty, of course they will talk more because they are much more involved. So there's a natural bias based on your brand. The same applies for the category. If it's a high involvement category, people talk more. If it's low involvement, they talk less. Then the recency effect also takes an effect. If there is something that just happened recently, people remember more, they are also more involved because it was just recently and they have more to say. Also, the frequency of other requests. So if there is someone who has lots to do, gets a request for feedback every day or every hour, whatever website he visits, he is of course prone to not participate so much and also do not respond so much. And there are also demographical factors. Some people don't like to write. Maybe it's cumbersome for them either on phone or on the computer. So all these factors have an effect, and you can hardly control it because it's part of the DNA of your customers. But there are some reasons you may be able to control. One is the order where you ask the open-end. So if you ask the open-end at the end of a questionnaire with lots of close-ended items asking for feedback, if you then ask for an open-end, people feel they already said everything. So, and also everything is very much biased, and so you should really ask this question first place. Good. Then there's also, of course, the fact that in online questionnaires, people talk less and write less than if there's, for instance, a telephone channel where they feel more social pressure. Basically, it's unpolite to say nothing, right? So if you have this option and you have a real problem with sparse feedback, this is something you may consider. Lastly, there is a priming of none. So if you put there an open-ended field and asking for feedback, the respondents have the feeling that anything they write in it is better than none, because none is the default. So the merit and what you can do here is actually that you give an example, or you even fill out an example. And with this example, you can prime. Lesson number 2, actually, instead of using text, it is gives much richer feedback actually to ask for audio or video feedback. Actually, there are different studies around that, but the rule of thumb, you get double of feedback just in terms of words. And this can be even much more. It really depends on the context. And the field is very much evolving because customers get more and more used to those kind of feedback. They are become more tech savvy and they become more likely to participate. Some years ago, a study showed that, okay, audio feedback is just done by, it was 15% or so, but this doubled then in the year after. And very soon we will see this, that people are quite likely to participate. So what your actual status will be depends basically on a pilot you need to run. The acceptance of using it via mobile is actually rapidly increasing, because what is always a problem is the tech burden. Yeah. So, but in the mobile, typically, if you just have a push of a button like in WhatsApp, there is everything in it. Yeah. With a desktop, you don't know, do they have a webcam? Is the microphone on or muted? So all these things are barriers, but on a mobile, this barriers typically doesn't exist. So and here we have a quite higher likelihood to get feedback. Yeah, why does it work? It works because it implies social pressure. So if you record something, you feel, yeah, someone will listen to it. So the process is as follows. Yeah, you ask for audio or video feedback, and of course you need to test it out, but I would certainly test to make it mandatory. There will be a lower response rate, but how much lower needs to be tested out. And then this recording actually can go in real time to an auto transcription service. Yeah, you record the audio, and this goes in real time to a service which gives back you a text. And this text can then automatically translate it as well. So this goes to, for instance, DeepL.com, and within milliseconds you have a translation to your to the core language you want to use. This text can also be run into a cloud service that reads the emotion and the demographics, the age of the customer, and so forth from the video. The same you can do with text. You can read some emotional components from the text which is used. And finally, also cloud services are available to categorize the text and the topics, and we already discussed this in an earlier class. So active listening actually is another evolving tech and topic and methodology you should use for your open ends. Active listening is actually an adaptive real-time response to feedback to foster customer elaboration. Active listening is an adaptive real-time response to feedback, so you get more of it. So this is actually much more than a pre-formulated second question. Of course, you could think of, yeah, I ask a question and then I ask, can you tell me more? Which is always true. But active listening is an individual response. So why does it work? It's, first of all, it's a positive affirmation, so that the customer or the respondent is heard. Yeah, he really feels someone is valuing his input. So it primes expectations. Yeah, it primes, okay, it is expected so that I write more. And it is kind of a social pressure nudge. If something intelligent responds to me, it feels like a human. That's why it's called artificial intelligence. So there are basically two different approaches we see in the market. The first is the in-field probing. So within the open-end field, there is some probing. The other type of technique is basically a chatbot. Yeah, basically people are answering, and the survey adaptively responds to it. So here's an example. where people write something very short, yeah, and the active listening approach is then popping in what is good. And so there's also yeah, basically a meter which shows how detailed it is. So it's basically priming you how good you are. Yeah. So that's one way of doing it, and of course it a little bit depends on the complexity of your input. So it can go wrong if basically you wrongly categorize what has been said, or you put it in a not working grammar, right? And this really needs to be tested and piloted beforehand. There's another technique. The chatbot type of technique is actually a little bit more foolproof. Yeah. So basically, you have an open end. Someone writes something in it and submit it, and basically then the chatbot pops up and say, "Hey, I'm a bot." And actually, what you wrote, I didn't understand that. So the bot has an option to be really authentic and be open. I didn't understand it, right? So the person can write it better, and then the bot also can ask whether or not what he has understood in this here he understood more reliable products, and can basically ask for affirmation. Basically, is this correct? And typically then ask, if this is the case, please write more. So typically, what I've saw in studies that even though the chatbot categorizes well what has been said, typically the respondents feel that it's not 100% true what they wanted to say, because you when categorizing you use different words. These are not the words of the respondent, and they feel to the need to write it more specific of what they really meant. So in this way, this feedback gives yeah, good power to probe for more feedback, and it's really a dialogue, a conversation, and this typically doubles actually the number of topics mentioned. So that's a second approach. So let me summarize. Open ends are often quite scarce. So you want to do something against it. Make sure you apply the common rules to get your customers talking. So there are something you can't change, and some things you really need to make sure you leverage those techniques you can do already. Then really consider to collect audio or video feedback. Both will be translated into text as well. And the same methodology we discussed today or in this course applies for audio and video feedback as well. It can be then categorized in topics. Also use active listening, and actually active listening can be also applied for audio and video feedback as well. So when I talked about cloud services, it might sound a bit techy, but actually today this is quite easily implemented, and it's for enterprises readily available for a small amount of money. So that's why better unstructured feedback is the most customer-centric way of collecting feedback. And that's why it's so important to really collect a lot of it and to invest in those kind of techniques and not alter to closed-ended surveying again. Thank you.